And yet, if you read between the lines, it's a very clever statement.
Yeah, and there have been stories out today that Victoria feels just completely humiliated by this. Do we know anything about this dance? What song was it to? What was she doing?
The word grind was what I heard, grinding. Brooklyn was really, really upset after the wedding or during the wedding and actually had a little cry.
This is an emergency episode of Showbiz Fix because we are currently all living through the bombshells dropped by Brooklyn Beckham last night on Instagram. So I've called on our expert, Clemmy Moody, to dial in from her hollybobs because, Clemmy, we've got to hear what's going on here. So 6 pages of Instagram stories from Brooklyn last night.
Yeah, thank you, Brooklyn, for absolutely ruining my holiday. But no, in all seriousness, I have not known my phone to pop off like this since, Colleen Rooney's famous ellipsis when she said it's Rebecca Vardy. But I think the traffic I'm getting my phone is 10 times bigger than that. This is quite extraordinary. His 6-page damning, very damning statement, it's gone viral in a way that I can't remember ever seeing.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And I think the thing was, it was like all the different revelations and accusations. He called them out for inauthenticity. He accused them of making bribes. He said that Posh ruined the wedding in various ways. And I know the internet sleuths have gone wild on that, calling out inaccuracies. But just in from this side, David has actually spoken out on this and given a bit of a clue as to this. So he's been chatting with the NBC, supporting a UNICEF social media campaign, in which he said, they make mistakes, but children are allowed to make mistakes. That is how they learn. That's what we try to teach my kids. You sometimes have to let them make those mistakes. Is this a bit of a window into Bex' reaction to all of this?
Yeah, I mean, it's not ideal timing for David Beckham having to go and say something. He knows he's a smart man. He knows he couldn't go there. He will be asked about it. He'd already previously ignored it when a reporter, I think Sky News, had asked him for comment. He would have had briefings from his team. They would talk long and hard about how he addressed this in the loosest, most opaque way possible, which is exactly what he's done here with a very generic, very bland. And yet, if you read between the lines, it's a very clever statement. And possibly a little bar back at Brooklyn saying children make mistakes, i.e. he's made a massive mistake here.
Yeah. Are we going to hear a proper response from them though? Because Brooklyn's gone on record. It would be fair if they did too.
Yeah, certainly the briefings I'm getting are that, well, no briefings. There will be no comment, no response formally. We're not going to see David and Victoria sitting down with Vogue and doing an emotional tell-all. They're not going on Oprah. They're going to keep a dignified silence and let this play out in the most public, heartbreaking way imaginable. The only control they've got really is by keeping this private, is my take.
Yeah, and there have been stories out today that Victoria feels just completely humiliated by this, and certainly she told you when you spoke to her earlier and back end of last year that she had been having therapy recently.
Yeah, and I hope she's continuing to do that. I'm sure she needs it. I'm sure everyone on all sides needs as much professional and personal help as possible. She said that mental health is important to her, something that as a family they strongly believed in. And at the end of each day, they try and have supper together. They sit, they talk, they ask how their days were, and how they're feeling. To talk about feelings, and one can only imagine what her feelings are, and she must be all over the place. Have you seen those memes that are going viral about her sort of dancing AI things? That song, I'm horny, 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 horny. Why am I singing this to you now? That is doing the rounds. And, one of the most successful designers in the world. She's 51 years old, mother of 4. And, she's being mocked like this. And, I'm sure friends of Brooklyn and Nicola find it sort of satisfying or funny, but it's going to devastate Victoria.
Did we see this coming? We've heard rumblings from his side that it was all of this social media tagging and these sort of, slightly fake looking approaches online. Was this always inevitable?
No, I didn't see it coming. I've heard rumblings of most of what he'd said. His friends have, they've maintained this party line for the last few months, and they feel they haven't always had a voice. It was a particular story that really bothered them, I'm told. The idea that Brooklyn wanted a reconciliation, he didn't, he never has. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back, if you like. And that's what prompted his vitriolic 6-page statement where he just wanted, as the kids say, his truth, his voice out there. and he wanted to go direct where his words could be twisted, and just do this powerful statement and see, just get it off his chest, I guess.
What does he want to achieve? Is it literally just saying his piece, just as you say, sharing his truth?
Yeah, again, all of us, it's speculation. We don't know. And I think it's really important to just remind everyone that whilst sure it's, titillation on a showbiz level, there are real people at stake, real human beings and real families. And this we played out across, the land over families. And it is a really sad, heartbreaking situation. And I just think we should be mindful of that. But yeah, I just think he wanted one and done, say how he feels and hope that people leave him alone, because up until this point, Dave and Victoria were getting a lot of support, I think, and perhaps he felt, he wanted to say something in a way that he felt comfortable with. And it'll be interesting to see, the tide of public opinion, who's backing who now.
Yeah, well, certainly we have a poll running online and it looks pretty split at the minute. And I think that's the thing, isn't it? There's children and parents involved in this, and everyone can kind of feel like a bit of ownership on this because we've all had these family disputes, haven't we?
Yeah, and in a weird way, it makes the Beckhams and the Peltzers more relatable than ever. And for me, there is some light in that, and how they handle it going forwards. They could help and inspire, teach, and give comfort, I guess, to families around the world.
Yeah, relatability obviously is massive, isn't it? Do you think that they ever will reconcile? Is that ever on the cards?
I really hope so, and I'm sure, despite all of this over the last 24 hours, I'm sure every single party right now, perhaps with the exception of Nicola Peltz, would like there to be a reconciliation. Obviously, no one can see it happening in the next 12 months or so, but life is short, life is precious, and I really hope that there is some sort of private, extending an olive branch, and that, someone makes the first move.
Yeah. Well, the smoking bomb here obviously is this wedding video that will show the dance. Is there any world in which this will be released? Because I believe it will just be Nicola and Brooklyn that have the rights to that, because the video was shot at their request.
Yeah, well, I understand there is a video. It does exist. No one was allowed their phones. I think Brooklyn and Nicola were allowed their phones. Obviously, what they have on there, we don't know. But they had a videographer, and that videographer does have the full first dance. They have that up their sleeve. Can't imagine a world in which they release it. But, if you're Victoria Beckham, you're going to be really nervous, and you're probably not going to want that first dance out there. It'll be interesting to see if Mark Anthony comes out in support of David Victoria and says, well, actually, this is what happened. And, he was the wedding singer. And what a wedding singer. So that's got to be keeping poor Victoria up at night.
I mean, obviously, you've discussed already the memes of Victoria and this inappropriate dance. Do we know anything about this dance? What song was it to? What was she doing?
The word grind was what I heard, grinding. So, again, as the late Queen said, recollection, again, as the Queen once said, recollections may vary. So, one person's grinding might be another's jolly little sort of bop. So again, let's release the receipts and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, certainly the Vogue official report on the wedding suggested that the Mark Anthony dance didn't happen till 11 p.m, completely separately from the first dance, which was earlier in the day to an Elvis track, which would suggest that Brooklyn's, recollections do vary. So we'll see.
I know. Is that Brooklyn was really, really upset after the wedding or during the wedding, and actually had a little cry. Nicola also had a cry. I know that they were really upset by something that happened on their wedding day, and perhaps it was all the machinations beforehand, perhaps it was the emotion of the event, and they were so overwhelmed with love, but there were tears.
Yeah, it's such a shame, isn't it, sometimes when these things are so reported. Now we're digging into, is Brooklyn lying? And his whole point here was to try and clear things up.
Yeah, I don't think we should go down that path. I don't think that's kind. I think that's right. I don't think anyone is lying. I genuinely think there's truth, and there's so much nuance and layers and so much to this. And I think everyone believes what they're saying and, what happened. It's just to what extent. And you know, as I say, there is just nuance, and we have to take everything with a pinch of salt at this stage.
Yeah, God, and it feels like it's going to roll and roll.
It will roll and roll. My holiday. Yeah.
Can you check Clemmie's diary next time, Brooklyn, please?
Well, yeah, up to my out of office. That would have been great. But
Oh,
I'm
God.
back there with David, Romeo, and myself.
Yeah, well, you know, I had to have you as part of the shot. Okay, so that's all for the Beckham's feud, but don't forget you can keep up with everything on thesun.co.uk, across our socials and YouTube, because this story is going to keep on giving.